So when you talk about content is the ad, everybody hears content is king, right? What I like to say is if content is king, then connection is queen. Because it's all about connecting with people, knowing who they are, I call it looking them in the eye digitally. Okay, like you look people in the eye when you see them. But also it's about context, and it's about what? It's about getting people's attention and then putting them in the right frame of mind. So some of you might know I'm a divorced dad. It's part of who I am. I have to fight to keep my kids in my life, so I learned a lot from two little girls about how to connect. And the one thing I really learned about putting a smile on people's face is that when you have two little girls bickering, you grab them by the hand and you skip. Now give me your hands. Come on, everybody, hold hands. Come on, you guys. Let's skip down the aisle, okay? You cannot be unhappy when you're skipping, okay? So what I like to say, wait, everybody here, thank you very much. I'll sign this for you later if you like. It's a copy of my book. I do write about that in here. I write about skipping. Because what you want to do when you interact with your consumers, with your friends, with your family, is you want to make them metaphorically skip after every interaction. That's what's going to make people pay attention to you. So let's see, I got a thing here. Now, just want to warn you, my head's like a Twitter feed. Stuff just comes in and out of it all the time. Some of you guys have seen me tweet, so I go off in different directions. It might look like what the slide says. It might be something else. You got two choices. You can let me go, if you like what I'm talking about, or you can draw me back and say, what about what you were just talking about? You didn't finish. Now, first of all, I'd like to talk another thing about content, is look at this remarkable conference we have here. Jason knows more about content than most of us because his content is the ad. It's not about what he puts up telling people to come here. It's the people that are speaking, okay? The Morgan Johnsons, the Chris Penns, the Jay Bears, Chris Brogan, Adam Kimmick. Adam, did I get that right? Perfect. I can never get that name right. Adam from, what is it? The Campbell's guy. Katie Richmond will be speaking later. That's what makes people want to interact with the things you're doing. So just, again, to the content is the ad today, we all know people are ignoring most of what they see as far as banner ads. I'm not saying don't do them. TV commercials have lots of value. But when you really want to connect with people, you tell stories. You build relationships. Shoppers are seeking information on their own terms now. Right? It's different. People are searching. Search is so important, and content relates directly to search. Because people are going to find either your company logos, the ingredients in the product you're manufacturing, or they're going to find emotionally connected content that means something to them, that hits them inside. Shoppers trust stories. Now, a little bit of my story is I got involved in this whole digital space in 1997 with a guy some of you probably heard of named Seth Godin. Okay, he had a company back then called Yo-Yo-Dine. It was the first online direct marketing company. It was an early time in the space. Everybody thought e-commerce was putting a catalog online. Do you remember when they called it new media? Everybody remember that? It wasn't new media back in the 90s. It was just old media in a new package. Right now, we are actually in the era of new media. It's the age of influence. When anybody in this room can build a brand, affect change, and make a difference right from their living room. It's kind of crazy, right? I mean, I don't sleep because it's a 24/7 kind of a thing. And every time I'm ready to go to bed, I think I might be missing something. And it's hard for us to turn off, but it also gives us an amazing opportunity for everyone here to create content. And don't make the mistake and think content is always blog posts. Content is engaging. Content is talking to people. Now, what content isn't today is print. Everybody hears this, right? Print is dead. Right? It's going the way of the dinosaur. How many people are going to keep cutting down trees and throwing ink on paper? You've heard me say it, but I just want to let you guys know print is not as dead as you think. Because this paper is not going away that fast, at least I hope not. And as you can see, Star toilet paper is now giving us content in a place we never expected it. So when people tell you print is dead, here, share this, you can pass it around. Print is not actually dead. It still has its uses. So I like to talk a lot about, you guys know I use the term return on relationship. It's something I started talking about in 2009 when I realized that people were using social. I was at a company called Elf Cosmetics, eyeslipsface.com. Amazing opportunity because I was selling a product to women. And some of you may have heard me say this before, but social media ceases to exist without women. Just doesn't, it's gone. Because men don't communicate that way. We just talk at each other. We wait until the guy's done talking while we're thinking of what we're going to say next. We very rarely even catch much of what he's saying. I mean, right, ladies? We look over your shoulder while you're talking to us. We nod our heads and we stare at the ESPN scores. Men don't share that way. How many men in here go into a store, take a picture of the shirt that they like, send it to 10 of their friends, wait for the comments to come back, pick one, go home, then their bestie writes them and says, nah, now it's got to go back to the store. Okay, we buy it, we call our one guy. Everybody, guys have guys. We've got our tech guy, our car guy. You know, it might be a woman, a clothing, somebody. We show it to one person, we're bringing it home. If we end up not liking it, it gets thrown in the corner. We don't talk about it, we don't share. Women share. So I was at a company that was selling a product to women and then was selling cosmetics. Ladies, let's raise of hands. Who loves cosmetics, right? You guys love it. You play with it. This is what I learned. My first week, I was not a cosmetics marketer. I was a traditional marketer. And I came in and all of a sudden I started sending box of cosmetics, dollar cosmetics. We're not talking expensive stuff. To women that I knew. And invariably, the email I got the next morning, whether it was a 17-year-old woman or girl or a 70-year-old woman, was I was up all night playing with my new stuff. You guys play with cosmetics. It was a revelation for me. And you guys also create content with cosmetics. You take pictures. You share it with your friends. So here was a place where I got those two opportunities, and then I had the other two that were fabulous. Number one, family-owned business that created two things. They didn't want to spend any money. They still didn't realize what the manpower was going to take, but they weren't buying ads, and they could create all this shared media. And number two is no legal department. It was awesome. It was 2008, 2009. There were no lawyers telling me what I could and couldn't do. I got an opportunity to build a huge social presence before all the competitors with money like L'Oreal, like Estee Lauder, like Sephora were able to jump in the space. And I got a huge amount of learning. And what I learned right away is that the people that followed us were much more than an audience. They were an asset. And it's the way that I've been looking at it from that day forward, is that I understood that I'm not just, and nothing wrong with broadcasting, people. It works. People say don't broadcast on Twitter. I say bullshit. There are times to broadcast on Twitter. Interact and engage so people know you're real. Build an audience, provide value. But if you think of them as an asset, you think of it as a whole different way. Your home is an asset. You don't just leave it sitting there. You improve it. You fix things when it breaks. You try to make it worth more when you're leaving it than when you started with it. Now, people start mistaking. Now, there's a great thing about all these platforms. I love it. I can make 1 million friends over a couple of days. But what happens is we start thinking that making a friend is just clicking a button. Facebook's done an amazing thing. They own the word friend. Imagine that. You laugh, but I've talked in front of groups of sophisticated marketers, and tweets go out going, do they really? Did they trademark that? But the truth of the matter is they've taken over this word and they've taken the value away from it. Because they think everything is about mass. How many likes do you have? Now, again, people up here on the stage have talked about it. Chris Penn mentioned it. Likes have value as long as you do something with them. But you need to reach out one by one. And then the next question comes up is, how do you scale that? Right? How do you scale one by one? Because social is just a facilitator of relationships. Don't make the mistake that being on Facebook or being on Twitter and have people that follow you makes it a relationship. But here's how you scale those one-to-one conversations. Guess what? Most people don't want to talk to you. They don't. They don't want to talk to a brand. But what they do is they watch how you talk to other people. Ever been to a cocktail party? Big room? Jay Baer's talking in one corner, Chris Brogan's talking in another. I'm talking over there, I got the small audience, they got all the people listening, but we all have people listening to us. And everybody else is being quiet. They are the valuable people. How many of you guys have heard people tell you, don't unfollow people on Twitter if they haven't done anything in 90 days? How incredibly stupid is that? How many people are just searching Twitter? How many people are just reading tweets on Twitter? Those are your valuable audience. They're the people that are listening, people. They're the ones that are paying attention. And what happens is when you interact one-to-one, when you talk to somebody, all the people watching are participating vicariously. They're becoming a part of that conversation. See, now JetBlue gets it. JetBlue gets it, everybody. Hand for Morgan Johnson. So I'm going to tell you a story how I met Morgan. It's 2009, and I'm on a flight to South by Southwest. Now I'm going to bring up some bad reminders. You guys remember when JetBlue had all those planes stuck on the runway, one after another, hours at a time? By the way, did you ever see them buy ads to tell you that everything was fixed? No. They built a social department. So I'm on one of those flights. It's at the end of the process of this happening. I'm flying to South by. A few of you are probably familiar with that conference. Stuck on the runway for 2.5 hours. I finally get fed up. I whip out my laptop, throw in my hotspot, and I tweet out the way I'd normally do to brands. JetBlue, big fan, love you guys, but what the is going on today? I'm on flight so-and-so sitting on the runway. Within 60 seconds, I got a response. Mind you, a canned response, the way it starts. And it said, sorry you're having a problem, we hope it gets better soon. Now, Morgan's probably going to go back into the file to try to find that, so it might be a little different, but it was something to that effect. Well, I didn't just take that. I said, well, that's great, thanks a lot, but what's going on? Nobody here has any information. I get an answer back. It seems there's a problem on the flight. Yeah, I know that. But little by little, as I kept asking more questions, they kept engaging with me. And the next thing I know, I'm being given information about why we're delayed. And I find out, and again, don't quote me exactly on the city, but it was something to the effect of our bags were on the New Orleans flight, New Orleans bags were on our flight. It was a mix-up. And the basic question was, do you really want to take off? No. But being not understanding the logistics of the airline business, I said, what's the big deal? Take them off of one plane, put them onto the other plane. I even offered to get off the plane and help. And again, instead of just humoring me, I started getting real information. We can't do that. We can't do things on the tarmac. We need a gate. There's union crews. There's all these things that go into how do you get a plane back to the gate and get things fixed. I felt good because what do we want more than anything? Ladies, speak up. You want to be heard, right? You want people to listen to you. You want to know that they're paying attention. I'm getting real information. Now, the other thing they did is they made me a hero on the plane. I'm telling everybody on the plane what's going on. The flight attendants are coming to me and asking me. So finally, during this conversation, I get a tweet that says, listen, we got a crew, we got a gate. We're going to get you guys back up in the air in the next 20 or 30 minutes. Great. They stop. They think they're done. About 30 seconds later, I tweet out, I go, well, that's all well and good, but we're all going to get into Austin after midnight, and we're missing all our parties. How about free drinks for everybody on the plane? I get the standard answer, federal, FAA doesn't allow, blah, blah, blah. And I write back and go, I don't care. We want a party. So I get a tweet back saying, how about free movies for everybody when you get in the air? I go, done. I tell everybody in the plane, they all clap, we take off, we get free movies. And you guys, you heard this yesterday, still no Wi-Fi on JetBlue. I really can't wait to start flying them again. We land. Well, look, I play both sides, okay? We land, first thing I do is I tweet out, kudos to @JetBlue. They couldn't fix my problem, but they engaged me. About a month later, I'm on a panel at the CMO Club, Chief Marketing Officers Summit, with, guess who? The director of communications, Morgan Johnson. Never met him. Did not walk up to him and say, hey, dude, you screwed me up on my flight. Sat down on the panel. It's him, me. It was Jeff Roars from Exact Target was the moderator. And it was the guy from Citibank before. I forgot who was there. But it was basically talking about aspirational brands like Elf versus companies like Citibank and JetBlue that get basically nothing but complaints. And as we're talking, Morgan starts talking about engagement. And I look at him as he's talking, and I go, I have to give you kudos. And he just froze. And he starts looking at me, and he goes, you're the guy. And he looks back, and he says, Ted Rubin, you're the drinks guy. This is in front of a room of 150 CMOs from Fortune 500 companies down to startups. And totally authentic. And I'm like, how do you know? He goes, because I was tweeting with you. Because it got escalated. Because when they saw there was a guy who's asking a lot of questions, who has a lot of followers, or was getting a lot of interactions, people started retweeting it, he jumped in and started giving me information that was valuable. That's content. That's engaging. That's content. You don't have to tell stories. You don't have to write blog posts. That stuff, this story has been told time and time again, and I tell it, and people retell it, and people who just heard it or watched it and saw it happen. I've had people say to me, I saw when that happened. So that's something you guys have to keep in mind. It's about engagement. That's as simple as content can be. Dwayne Reed gets it. Full disclosure, client of CollectiveBias. We create huge amount of scalable, emotionally connected content for them. And the side of this is, while they've been working with us for the last 13 months, their Twitter following went from 2,000 to 415,000. They have more followers than any drugstore chain in the country, including their parent company, Walgreens, who has 8,000 stores. And the reason is it's filled with content, interaction, and engagement. There's no gaming going on here. There's no bought Twitter followers. I can't even tell you if we can duplicate it and do it again. We certainly hope we can. But the truth is, it's not only a large following, it's a very engaged following. And what does it talk about? It doesn't talk about the drugstore. It doesn't talk about pharmacy. It talks about New York life. It talks about things that people are passionate about. There's content created in storytelling format about families. And when people react to that, the conversation moves into Twitter. So a lot of it is about building trust. Because when you connect with people, you build trust. And what's trust? Trust is based on interaction, consistency, being true to your word, and being genuine. That doesn't mean being true to your brand in the old school way of being true to your brand. How many of you guys have said in the meetings where you're talking about the social space and some guy goes, well, that's really off-brand for us? Well, my next question is, well, tell me, what is your brand in social media? What's your brand in store? So Nordstrom will tell you it's about connecting with people. It's about coming out from behind the counter, handing off a bag. I personally think they should give a hug along with that. What do you guys say? Right? Imagine that. I think another chain like Saks should start hugging people instead of just handing them the bag. But then you talk about what is there, and by the way, when I talk about hugging, what I'm really talking about, again, is a metaphor, is embracing your customers, embracing everybody in your organization. I almost went off into the employee thing, but we'll get there. My head's popping around again right now. Oh. Start listening. How many of you people really listen? Let's start with yourselves, your families, your coworkers. Most of us don't listen to our coworkers, do you guys? You just want to keep straightforward on what you have to do. You don't want to hear others' opinions, because then you might have to change what you're doing. When was the last time you walked in the store and heard, how can I serve you? Remember when you used to hear that? When the local businessman cared about you? Big companies can do this. They just need to start looking people in the eye digitally. And what does that mean? That means answering people by name. Who knows the best social media book ever written? I'll give you a clue. It was written in 1936. It's called How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Everybody in this room needs to go out and buy it today. Forget my book, forget Jay's book, Chris's book, all the bullshit that we're giving you now. Go back to 1936 and learn how to connect with people. The sweetest word to a person is their own name. Watch my Twitter handle. I answer everybody by name almost in every tweet, unless it becomes a conversation. And I take the time to figure it out even when they're foolish enough not to list their name on their Twitter follow, on their bio page. Call them by name. Ask them what's important to them. Let them talk. Be that one who says to them, tell me about you. This is what Dale Carnegie taught, and this is what we have to start doing today, and you can do it online. So how do you look people in the eye digitally? You look at their bio. You read where they're from. When you reply to them, you say, if they're from Park City, you say, I love to ski. They're going to know that you read into who they were. Make a comment about them. It takes a little bit more time, but you'll connect with people that way. And then aim for ongoing engagement. You've heard lots of tips here about using favorites to connect with people that have retweeted you. Pay attention to those people. I go into my feed randomly all the time and I repeat tweet people, just out of nowhere. And it's hard because there's a lot of nonsense in there. We all know that, but that's the way it is. Walk in a room full of people, there's a lot of nonsense in there. Find the ones that are saying something valuable, and then help them share that message. And then know who the people are. Because most of our companies, again, we assume that the people in our social audience are the same as the people in our traditional, I hate when I say that, traditional digital audience, and the same people that are coming into our stores. Start thinking reputation, not ranking. Don't worry about your numbers. I'm going to jump ahead now because I have another slide, but it always makes me think about this. Remember something. A brand is who you are. A reputation is what people remember. People will talk about the fact that my phone number is 917-613-1947. Call me any time. I tweet it all the time. I give it to you now. I will pick up the phone. Think connection, not network. It's not about how many people are following you, it's how you connect with them. And then most important is think loyalty, not celebrity. See, I did jump ahead a little bit there. You know what doesn't work as social media strategy? Not being social. Not communicating with people. Not talking to them. Not making sure that, I forgot who it was up here talking the other day about humanity. Was it you? Yes, it was Morgan with JetBlue about being more human. We have to give our businesses a heads up. They've got to change their framework. And it's not just about how they can sell consumers. It's about how they interact with each one of you. Here are my keys to marketing. Participate. Get involved. Talk to the people that you're trying to sell. Listen to their conversations. Forget focus groups. You guide those things. Go in and listen to conversations. Use hashtags. Go into tweet chats. Find things that are relevant to your brand. Just search your brand name. Search the topics that are important. Look at your competitors and participate. Oh my God, experiment. How many of you guys see things and the biggest, people say that companies are afraid of social media because they're afraid of communicating with people. They're afraid what they're going to hear. You want to know what they're really afraid of? They're going to have to freaking work. Right? You know what it used to be? It was awesome. Christmas came along. You made your plan in the fourth quarter for Q1 and all the way through the next year. You put it in place, and the CMO stopped working. He started traveling around the country, hanging out with people, talking. He didn't have to do anything anymore. The whole plan was in place. It's not the way it works anymore. You got to experiment. You got to change. Engage and build relationships. That's my hashtag, R&R. Great example of not listening when you market. Big mistake I made. I started out using the hashtag ROR. Makes sense, right? Return on relationship. But the Ruby on Rails guys gave me a hard time. They said I was blowing up their feed with tweets and I should stop, that they owned ROR. And there's two things. If you guys know me, I talk about just being nice. So, okay, it's yours. Number two is you don't want to piss off a bunch of coders. So I went to R&R, and instead of asking my audience, instead of talking to people, instead of listening, I said, this makes sense, because it made sense to me. R-on-R, return on relationship. For 2 years, people wanted to know who Ron R was. Number one rule in marketing, your audience. Know what they're interested in. Market to them, not to yourself. I marketed to myself. By the time I realized it, it kind of caught on, and people said, don't change it. So, measure things that matter. We're in a new environment now. Don't measure what you used to measure. It probably isn't about click-throughs. It's probably more about, people say, how do you measure return on relationship? Well, you can measure loyalty. You can measure repeat purchases. You can measure average order value. You can measure lifetime value of a customer. You can measure how many people share what you're giving them with other people. That's advocacy, people. And that's what's going to make you money. And then please have some fun. Make it fun, like the skipping. That's what people do. That's how they're going to want to come back. If they feel good, if they're smiling, if they're metaphorically skipping after every interaction with you. And you can do this in customer service. You can do this everywhere. Because again, most of us just want to be heard. We can be told no, as long as it's done the right way. And participating. So here's just an example. Some of the things that we do at CollectiveBias. New platform comes out. You don't have to believe Vine's going to be big. I don't. I think the smartest thing they ever did was sell to Twitter. It's a great little tool, but it's not going to catch on as a platform. But we go out and we try it. We do Vine of the Day things for our community members, just so we can get in there and use the tool. We all wear Nike Fuel Bands in my company. We call it our company health plan. We've had 3 people lose close to 30 pounds. Now what it does is it socializes us as a company. We talk to each other. We challenge each other. We watch what each other's doing. We're all on Path. Do I think Path's a great application to grow your business or your company? No. Do I think it'll survive? Probably not, unless they figure out something. But I love it because it's our company intranet. Everything that happens with the Path, I don't know if you're familiar with it, you can only follow 150 people, but you see everything they're doing. So we know when Ted's speaking on stage, the rest of the company knows. When we're walking into a potential client, people see the pictures. When I'm with my kids on the weekend or watching my daughter's track meet, my fellow workers, my colleagues know what's important to me. And it builds a relationship. I guess we didn't fix this slide. The path to purchase is lined with content. Your companies people can search, they can find logos, they can find ingredients, or they can find stories. ROR drives discovery. We built an app for Disney, 600,000 downloads, because it was about storytelling. It was about kids being able to share. This was done strictly with blog posts and social media. No traditional advertising drove this. Bigelow Tea, double-digit increases in sales once they started engaging with content, building, and storytelling. Not why their tea is better than somebody else's, but how people just make it a part of their everyday lives. Organic content, you guys have all been hearing this, is preferred by searchers. They're going to go there before they're going to go to your company ads. Put up something that is going to engage them. And remember, like I said before, it doesn't all have to be about storytelling. It can just be about everyday lives. It can be about engaging with your clients. It can be about answering questions. Now, I talk a lot about moments. I talk about my kids. They've made me a better marketer. I'm a divorced dad. I was all of a sudden alone with 2 little girls on my time. And then I had a serious crisis. I had to fight to keep them in my life. And there was some alienation that went on. And what this did for me is it opened me up as somebody that really listened on how do I connect with somebody. And it's made me a better marketer. Because what I've learned is to listen for the moments. It's not about milestones in your life. It's not about the birthdays, the weddings, the sweet 16s. It's about that moment when your child or your consumer opens up to you and is open to hearing from you. So we've all gone through this, right? We all want our kids to be better than we are. We want to teach them. So what are we doing? We're screaming at them, listen to me. And they're all putting up their hands like this. My girls are teenagers now. They're 16 and 18. That's a whole nother presentation. And I had to learn to find those moments. And as marketers, we're doing the same thing. We're all screaming at consumers. Buy my soup. Come to my store. But what you need to do is, just like you can do with your kids, is open up and look for that time when my daughter just starts talking to me out of nowhere. We're at dinner. She's 15, first time ever, and she gets discouraged about telling me about her personal life at home. She just starts talking about boys. Now, what I could have done is started asking a lot of questions, as we do with marketers, as we do in a store. We start trying to sell more stuff. But I realized I was in a moment, and I just shut up. And she went on and on. She's telling me how they have code names, and they call them by different colors. And there's orange and there's blue, and I'm in my head's a million questions going through my head, but I'm just keeping my mouth shut. And I had that moment. And then she asked me a question at the end of that. That was my time. And we got to talk. And I made more impact in that moment than I did over every time I told her not to lean on the wall, to close the lights, to watch out for boys, to whatever it is. This was my moment. Now, I made a classic error after that we all make as marketers. We drove home. She's in the car. She gets a call from a friend. She walks away and starts talking. It's dark out, so I'm waiting for her. She comes back. Now, folks, the moment was over. But I try to sell her more. Just like you do when you get that thing at the post checkout and they're going to sell you more stuff. And I said, so are you talking about blue? Okay, ladies, you know the look I got, right? Like, seriously? Did we ever have that conversation? And what I learned was to just keep my mouth shut and wait for the next moment. Yeah, it was interesting. Now she kind of looks and pauses. And she waits to see if I'm going to screw up again. She's giving me the opportunity. She's 16 now. It's getting, and my older one is 18 now. She was 17. She just got past what I like to call, and some of you ladies might be familiar with, the angry 17-year-old girl stage. You either are one or were one, or have one, right? It's remarkable how they turn 18 and it starts changing. So content drives engagement. Engagement drives advocacy. And advocacy correlates directly to increased sales. ROR, my hashtag R on R, just want to remind you of that. Because if you do ROR, the Ruby on Rails guys will start giving you a hard time. Equals ROI. Now I'm going to jump around a bit because I want to get into something that's really important to me.
Can you go back one slide just for a minute?
Certainly. Very important. And there's another slide that comes up a little later that talks a little bit more about this. I guess I'll just throw it out there now while you're copying the slide. But people ask me, what's the ROI of social? And I'm sure all of you guys have heard Gary Vaynerchuk say, what's the ROI of your mother? Well, I got an issue with that because I'm a Jewish kid and we have lots of issues with our mothers. Okay? So that all depends on how you value your mother. What I like to say is, I answer with the question, what's the ROI of trust? And what's the ROI of loyalty? And if you're trying to sell a CEO or a CMO on something you're doing in social, you've got to start talking their language. You can't talk about follows and likes and all the other nonsense. You've got to talk about something that means something to them. Trust and loyalty means something to CEOs because what you say to them is, let's take a look at your legacy loyalty program that you had in place sometime in the last 20 to 30 years. Either you had your own or you piggybacked on somebody else's with airline miles. And let's look at those customers. And I guarantee when they look in there, they will tell you that everybody in that program, even today with the lousy commoditized programs that are out there, the people that are members are better customers than the people that aren't. They are, again, higher average order value, higher frequency of purchase, longer term value of their customer. Lifetime value is longer. They're going to be there. Can I leave the slide now? Start thinking like children. I was outside before, and I yelled back at somebody from the breakfast room, and this woman who works at Hilton went, shh, inside voice. Okay, and it was perfect. I was like, oh my God, it's exactly what I talk about. We tell our kids, inside voice, be a good girl. Don't talk like that. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. We take the creativity out of our kids, and guess what? Our companies take it out of us. How many of you guys are afraid in a meeting to raise your hand and give a new idea? I bet you most of you, even though you won't raise your hands now and do it. Why? Because you're worried about what people are going to say. Are they going to laugh at me? Are they going to tell me it's stupid? We have to start being more like kids. Do you ever walk into a room with kids sitting at a blocks table? Don't let them know you're there. Just watch them. And you'll hear them go, hey, what if we do this? Right? And the other kid goes, yeah, let's try it. There's no looking at them like that's stupid. They do it. How many of you guys tried to dig to China when you were at the beach? I did. Right? You were never going to get to China. Okay, but you really thought you were. Start bringing that into the workplace. We've got to start a revolution. We've got to start telling our bosses that we want to doodle, that we want to daydream. How many people in this room think they're good artists? Raise your hand. 3, 4 people. If you guys were 10 years old or younger and I asked that same question, every hand would get raised. Because we believed in ourselves. We've got to start pushing back on our coworkers and our companies and start believing in ourselves and start creating content. Because if you only focused on the money, you risk overlooking the people. People ask me, what is return on relationship? I say ROI is strictly dollars and cents. And just to simplify it completely, ROR is about the people. Don't overlook the people and just be nice. It's really that simple. It's hard to get around. I went through a lot of challenges and it changed me. I walk down the streets of New York now, I swear, I really do. People bump into me, I smile at them. It's remarkable. And you want to know the best part about it? It makes you feel good. You don't get that stress inside when you're ready to hit somebody over the head. And I laugh. They walk down, everyone's like this, bumping into me, and I just smile. And then they look at you, and you know what happens? It's amazing. They smile back. If you want more from social, start empowering your employees. Don't be afraid of them. Give them the tools. Let them build their personal brands. I wear funky socks. Okay? People know that. I wear vests when I speak. Mike, you know what some of my content is every day? I take pictures of my socks and I publish it. I get more interaction from that than I do from almost anything else I do. It's content. Did I start out with that strategy? No. People started noticing my socks. I started taking pictures. All of a sudden now, if I don't publish my socks every day, I get emails, I get tweets, I get posts on Facebook going, where are Ted's socks? Is he okay? I was at a Spanish size last week in Miami. I was wearing a pair of topsiders and no socks. And people were like, I'm like, seriously, you expect me to wear socks with these? Empower your employees to build their brand. Don't be afraid of it. Wrap your arms around it. That's what I said before. I'll leave it up there for you if you want it. But it's about loyalty and trust, and I guarantee you can track that. And then be sure to find out what the conditions of satisfaction are. It's a term I stole from Jeffrey Hazlett. Love him or hate him, he's got some great one-liners. Forget about expectations because you never meet them. Set up conditions of satisfaction when you're talking to a company. What is it they're looking to accomplish? It's okay if they say more sales. Don't run away and be afraid. You can drive sales with social media. There's just not a direct line the same way there is from clicking through from other things. People have gotten spoiled. Let me tell you something, people. Social media is not digital. Don't make that mistake. Just because it lives in a digital environment doesn't mean it behaves like digital. That's where all those measurement problems come in because the C-suite has gotten spoiled because they think that everything is clicked through from a banner to a link on a page, and then they cookie it and they come back and track the sale. And by the way, they will give credit to that banner 2 months later because that's where it started, but they forget about all the interaction and engagement that went on in between and the storytelling and the searching that ended up creating that sale. Social is social. It's people. It's not digital. Digital is just a facilitator. Awareness equal revenues. Differentiators. How do you differentiate yourself? You wear vests. It's kind of cool. Saw a lot of people wearing them here. You wear bow ties. Love the bow tie. I got a great bow tie story. Come to me later. I don't have enough time now. I'll tell you about it. It's awesome. Authenticity equals loyalty and advocacy. And they're all measurable, and they all equal increased sales and profits. Now, here's a little tip for everybody. Anybody know what this is? Shout it out. iPhone, right? What's the biggest word in iPhone? Don't say I. Thank you. Finally. People say I. It's not I. It's phone. And there's a remarkable, everybody have phones with apps on them? You guys got apps on your phones? This thing comes with a pre-installed app. It's remarkable. It's got numbers on the screen, and you press them, and guess what? You can actually hear somebody's voice. It's fucking remarkable. You can have a conversation. You don't have to use an emoticon to express how you feel. You can laugh, you can cry, you can scream. I'm going to challenge you guys. Pick up this phone every day and call somebody you haven't spoken to in a month. And no, I'm not referring to your mom. Call her anyway. Make that the second call. And just say hello. Now, here's another tip. Make it easy for them. You want to know why people don't pick up the phone? Men, why don't we pick up the phone when our wives and girlfriends call? Because we can't get off the damn phone. How's your day? What are you doing? Make it easy. Get on the phone and say, hi, just calling to say hello. Is there anything I can do for you today? Of course, if they want to talk, don't just say, okay, goodbye, and hang up the phone. But this will make a remarkable impact. And don't think that how many people can I possibly call, right? 30 days, so many hours, but people will start talking about it. I tell people, call me up, I'll have coffee with you anytime. Reach out. Now, infinitesimal amount of people call me. I've been able to manage it, but guess what? They all talk about it. And that's how you build a movement, a cause. Have your employees work for something more than just a paycheck. Relationships are the new currency. Honor them, invest in them, and start building your ROR. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. We have no time for questions. It was nice talking to you. I will be here until tomorrow morning. I'm happy to talk to anybody. You guys all have my phone number now. Feel free to call me. Thank you.